Okay. Good evening. As chair of the North Bennington Board of Trustees, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by Governor Scott as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and pursuant to Addendum 6 to Executive Order 0120 and Act 92, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. We're here by Zoom video conference. It is September 8th, 2020, and it is 7:04. Sorry, we're starting a few minutes late tonight. I noticed there was one person in the waiting room, and somebody's calling my cell phone right now. Matt, could you take over for just 1 second, and I'll make sure this isn't somebody trying to call into the meeting?
Okay. Not sure what I'm supposed to do, but
John.
I guess we could start with, gotta get there.
Waiting room?
Let's approve the minutes from last time.
Well, we could review and approve the minutes of the Tuesday, August 11 meeting.
We started the minute a few minutes late, so we're going now though. So if you go ahead and click
You've all had an opportunity to see them, I'm sure.
I'll make a motion to approve as long as there's no discussion needed.
I will second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The minutes have been approved unanimously. Mr.
Okay,
John?
So these
Could you, excuse me, could you approve the second set of minutes for the month of August before moving on, Matt?
Wow, okay.
So there's two, and so have we approved the August 11th or August 24th?
11th.
11th.
Okay. All right. And just make sure that you take a good look at the August 11th one, just because, there was that was the application or that presentation on the mobile communication tower. And if you asked a question or if you would like, some adjustment to the meeting, you just want to make that clear there. So how about the minutes from August 24th, 2020? That was the special meeting with respect to the setting of the tax rate. Mr. Patterson, Ms. McKinney, myself, Tara Lowry, and Mark Boudreau were present at that. We're all present at that meeting.
We're here.
And I have reviewed those, and I would entertain a motion to accept those minutes if so moved.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, seconded by Ms.
I'll
Tara.
second it.
And is there any opposed? Hearing no opposition, that motion carries unanimously. And okay, so we do, just so we're aware, we do have a couple members of the public here on a particular issue. We're just going to take care of the general business before we move on to that, but you will be first up as soon as we take care of paying our bills here. So the review of the warrant and payment of the bills, we have copies of that. I can put it up on the screen here. Let's see if I can get a little bigger. Okay.
You can read them. There you go.
Okay, so generally let's see. Sorry, moving around on you there. I don't see any unusual expenses here. If there are some, Mary, you could point out anything that's...
There was nothing unusual that I saw.
What's this skid rail?
That looks like a pile driver.
It could be a tamper, like
Yeah, that's what I'll call it that.
so it's a gas tamper,
Yeah,
or because
A
we do
wacky tamper.
so we do a
Was
lot
that
of patching and
Is that a purchase or a rental?
no, it was a purchase.
Okay, so it's an attachment for the whacker.
No, I don't think it's an attachment. I think it's got its own standalone motor, and it's a piece of equipment.
Okay, handheld.
Right. It's like
Okay.
it's
Gotcha.
like a gas powered. It has a head and then the tamper body, and it does the
Gotcha.
cold patching.
Thank you.
But I can we can.
I just asked Norm.
Okay, great.
We used to have a couple of what they called wacky packers or something like that. It's a handheld thing that as you're building up lifts before you lay pavement or something.
Great, thanks.
Water department could maybe use one of them.
It's on there. It's got the thing. It's got the detail in it, but yeah. It looked like it was some sort of a driver, something that made.
Okay, I have an answer if you'd like.
There it is, gas driver.
It's a post pounder to
Mhm.
put in signposts straight.
Ah, that was that noise I was hearing on Main Street at my house when they were doing. Gotcha.
Okay, sorry about that. I missed.
Thanks, Lori.
Yep,
Really hit a-
sure.
Okay. Any other questions?
I'd make a motion to accept the warrant for September.
Okay, in the amount of $33,108.40.
That is
I'll
correct,
second.
sir.
I will second.
By Mark, and any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries unanimously. And the other one is just the our payroll.
Yeah, it'll
And
be
there's nothing
straightforward.
unusual there either.
Yep, I'll make a motion to approve payroll.
Is there a total on that?
$7,332.07.
Okay. And a second?
Second.
And is there any discussion or opposition to that? Hearing none, that motion carries unanimously as well. So the first order of business that we have tonight is we have some special guests from Park Street, and we would like to welcome them. And I will, we'll probably hit unmute at the same time and cancel each other out, but let's see here if I can do that. Are you hitting unmute too? There we
you go.
go. Okay.
I did. Okay.
Now we can hear you.
Hi, Nathan.
Hi.
And Ann.
Hi.
So we were, I think that a couple, the board was made aware of the issue of a decaying or hazardous tree on Park Street, but through the road department. And I forwarded the message to the tree committee, and the chair of the tree committee had seen it. And Matthew is also on the tree committee. And I think, did you get a chance to look at it or not, Matthew?
Yes. And I've talked with Jeff. I don't know you all very well, but the tree does seem that it is within the right of way. I'm not sure if it's 25 feet there or 33. However, deal with. I think there's a larger picture of the whole Park Street situation because there's many trees that are of concern that we've dealt with over the last 20 years that I've been here, piecemeal. And I also think that, obviously the water line project did probably cause what will become further damage to the west side of the road and trees that are there. But I have no problem with the village dealing with this tree on the Wallace property.
Okay, and I believe Norm's already requested a quote from Greater Heights anyways. So it won't be, I think this is a job that's a little bit more than, the village employees can handle. It really should be something we contract out just to make sure it's taken down safely and cleaned up as well, so.
Certainly.
And is that, so the idea was that you would be looking to have that completely removed, Mr. Sen?
Well, we do heat with wood here, so some of the wood could be left here, and we would use it for heating in the future.
Okay, well, usually the homeowner can just discuss that with the contractor directly and see what you can arrange. I know, obviously some of that, like some of the huge base pieces aren't going to be of use because it's pretty hard to get through, but probably a lot of the top would be, better.
Yeah, I think that would be useful.
Okay.
Yeah, and generally speaking, I think since there's been increased traffic on Park Street, pedestrians traffic all the time, bicycles, runners, joggers, I think it would be a good policy for the town to make sure that the hazardous trees along the road are taken care of. I suspect the fund from North Bennington makes sure that the trees along the mile-around woods are safe so no one gets hurt up there. And I think it might be a good thing to have the town look after Park Street pedestrians in the same way.
So, Matthew, is that, with that in mind, is that something that the tree committee has looked at or might be looking at in terms of it? I think what I'm hearing you say is that the character of that road is a farm road where the maples were right next to the dirt road there, and so, but now that those maples are 150 years old, that's a problem because they're all aging out at the same time, kind of, and so it seems like the idea would be.
Yeah, John. So we have taken some pretty good looks at this over the course of many years and gone in and done trimming. There was a case, I think it was back when the Water Street project was being done, and I'm sorry about the street noise. A tractor trailer went down the road and had their their trailer unzipped, and there are issues there, and there continues to be more. There are a few oak trees, pretty massive, on the west side of the road that are going to become a problem. And I've talked with the tree committee about taking yet another look at that. Ron Pembroke has done a great job with replanting a lot of really great mixture of oak and maples along his property.
Tulip.
As he's
This is
to plant and maintain that road, but we would want to make the trees. We'd want to set the trees back, and unfortunately, in some cases, the road drops off, precipitously, at least on the east side. But I think that'd be a project the tree committee would like to take on as kind of a foster project. And I think Nathan is correct that the fund would be very supportive of that with some extra funding. to make that happen. There are a lot of old trees that are up on the higher side of that road that will continue to pose I think, a significant danger to the Park Street road and pedestrians and cars. But Nathan, do you have any input on that?
No, I agree with you that it probably is, as the traffic, pedestrian traffic, bicycles increase, of course, the hazard becomes greater, more people traveling the road. So I think it would be a worthy part of the town budget to make sure that the roadway is safe.
Well, maybe we'll consider a sinking fund for that. Because it's not going to be, it might not be every year, but in the years where there are costs, they're going to be in the, several thousands of dollars. So we should probably prepare for that.
Yeah, I think that's worth making note. Some of those trees are $2,000 trees
Right.
or more to get down safely, and then replanting or figuring out where a good place is to do that. So,
Okay.
I appreciate that Ann and Nathan, that you guys have brought this to our attention. My only, and we'll take care of that, but my only point is there are many places along that road and elsewhere where we're starting to see degradation of the health of some of these older trees. So we have to, I think we, along with the tree committee, need to start thinking forward about that.
Okay. So how do we, so I think that is part of our general operating expenses, I think, in the highway. So it's just, Norm wanted to kick that up to us just to make sure, but he can just proceed without a formal motion here.
Yeah, I agree.
But I would like to make sure, maybe we have, when it comes budget time, that we have a tickler or something to remember that was something we wanted to include. Mary is giving me the A-OK. All right, great. So we'll try to make that part of the proposed budget for next year, is to set aside some money for Park Street. Well, actually, I mean, with the specific eye to Park Street, but there may be other areas like West Street or something that have that happening.
Yep.
So,
Well, I'm not too sure we could be that specific with it though, because if we're going to make this a priority, we can't limit it to certain streets. If we're going to do this, you're going to have to realize that everybody that comes before us with a similar tree within the right of way, we can't say no. So if we're going to do this, we're going to do it all the way or we're not. So, because I would have a really hard time. I for one, I run on that road all the time, and I agree. There's a lot. I support the effort and the thought, but it can't be done without thinking long term. And you can't refuse. Remember what the right of way is. The right of way doesn't mean we're responsible for it. The right of way is we can go in there for business necessary and then get out. But it does not. We don't assume responsibility for everything that's in the right of way. Because if we do, you're opening up a huge can. Again, this isn't me saying I don't support this particular, but if we're going to support this one, I would in the future not be able to say no to anybody, as long as it was certainly necessary and it was a similar circumstance where the tree or whatever it is a clear hazard. Then I think
I guess I take a little bit different view of that, in respectfully, of course.
Of course.
That, I think that I think the way that we can pose this is that if we're made aware of hazard trees that are within the right of way, then we can determine that is essentially a priority because somebody let us know about it, but that we still always have the ability to set our priorities. And if we don't, if it's if it's really a hazard tree and somebody lets us know, I think, we should do something. But if we
Which was my
determine,
point. Yeah, which is my point. We don't, just because somebody says it is, doesn't mean it is.
okay, all right,
So
great.
I'm just saying if it's brought to our attention, no matter where it is in the village,
Yes,
that it's a similar situation, that it's a hazardous tree and it's within the right of way,
Yeah.
we can't say no because it's a less traveled or not pedestrian heavy. We are setting precedent now that a tree within the right of way that is deemed unsafe and brought to our attention, we will take care of.
And I would just like to point out that by unsafe, it means that it's unsafe to the public and to the public passages,
Sure.
the roads or sidewalks. So again, a tree in the right of way is in the ownership of the people who live there, where the tree is, and if it's a hazard just to their house, and there's no concern about big limbs coming off onto the road, that's a different story. And so I think having a trained arborist such as Ron or other
Sure.
individuals who say this meets that criteria and we should be responsible for that. Once that's been deemed, it was the same reason we took the trees out at the school. Once somebody with training and expertise says you've got to deal with this, for us not to would be negligent. So but when someone calls and says, oh, this tree is just bothering me because it keeps dropping branches in my yard, or my porch roof gets a branch here and there,
That's a completely different scenario.
okay.
Yep, I
I
agree with that.
think we're all on the same page. And if somebody wants to make a motion, you're welcome to, but I don't think we need to in order to accomplish our goal here. Yes, Mary?
I just wanted to point out that the state does have funds available to take out and replace ash trees that are in the public right of way or on public property. So if any of these potentially hazardous trees are ash trees, perhaps the tree committee could assist with doing an inventory so that we can take advantage of that grant money and be proactive before they're dead.
Good to know. There probably are some of them that are ash, and I think the tree committee has started to look at that. Most of what we're talking about are oaks and maples, maybe some elms on Water Street, but
Long for now.
But if we're talking about perhaps a sinking fund for things that could happen 5, 6, 10 years from now, if the ash trees are anything like the ones on our property, which I love, but they are all dying. We should look at them and get them out while there is money to do so.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate the comments and we appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
good night.
I don't see that we have any other citizen comments. Could we go ahead with the treasurer's report?
Sure. I sent some comments around. First thing, which I did not comment it on, but I did send you a cash balance, and you'll note that there is, at the end of August, we had $93,000 available for our various funding purposes. We've got about $40,000 coming out of this with today's warrants. So we are running about as tight as we have. I'm not yet. I still am pretty convinced that we will not need to borrow, but we are running a little bit tight here. We have $30,000 coming from the state. It was deposited into the graded school account. Long story, but that's just how the state does it for North Bennington. We seem to be treated differently for some reason, but that money we'll have in our bank in the next couple of days. So that will replenish at least most of what we're spending here. Tax bills are out, so I hope to see some funds start trickling in. I also provided you some notes that are kind of common things that happen or questions that come up with tax bills. Just that way, in case you hear of anything from people, you can help answer them as well. But invariably, there are questions about people not getting them because they don't have the correct address. They've recently purchased the house, and the bill gets forwarded to the next person rather than delivered to the same address, or they have a PO box or who knows what. I am certain that there are a number of people who had not, when these tax bills were generated, who had not, as of July 15th, filed their homestead declarations. So I am expecting, at least with people that get their bills now 2 weeks earlier than typically have been sent out, people will really be able to notice that and take advantage of their homestead declaration potentials before October 15th, which is the deadline for there. I'd like to remind people that if they have the escrow, their mortgage company will pay that. Occasionally, people double pay it. So they don't need to, but all the bills always go to the homeowner so that they know what is coming and what they have. I had mentioned before, I really would like to do some extended in-person hours, and I would appreciate the board's suggestions or thoughts as to dates, times, etc., instead of just the week before taxes are due, perhaps, some additional time. So think about what you think might work well for our residents, and we'll get those things scheduled. And I think that was it for anything urgent or really important, but provided you some other notes for your review.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
And for all the work that goes into the reports too. I really appreciate that, and getting the taxes out. So as far as, I think I will touch on a couple issues under highway. So we are hopefully wrapping up the water extension project very shortly. There's basically what's left is a punch list, which there are, quite a few items on that punch list, but they're being taken care of one by one, and but then, the idea being that would be the end of it. So the biggest things are, if there is any kind of roadside or if somebody's lawn or if somebody's driveway or anything like that needs to be put back in order, that we need to get, it's actually getting kind of late at this point to get that information, but obviously we'll take, anything that somebody has, but we really need to know that information as soon as we possibly can. They're already pushing back about, the lateness of certain complaints. So, but the major points that I know, that I'm aware of, are a small issue at the entrance to our town highway garage, which is that where the new pavement meets our entrance created a significant lip there. And so that's not usable for the plow, because the plow is going to hit that lip every time they go out and damage our equipment. So that could just be kind of cheaply tamped down, but that's not necessarily a permanent fix, and it's actually pretty hard to do once the pavement has cured. So it could have been done when it was hot, but it's not, it's not anymore. So that entrance is pretty pulverized already. And so one of the solutions that was suggested was, well, why don't we combine it with just a routine upgrade, or not upgrade, but replacement for us. And so we got a quote to pave that entranceway, and then Zaluzny has quoted us basically what they're willing to do to fix their problem, and then we just basically subtract that from our cost to pave that entranceway. And so we've gotten a quote for like about, I think I sent out the emails. Did people get the emails on those? Okay, so I got a quote for about 5,500 for our cost, and then we would be subtracting a Zaluzny cost of about 1,500 from that. Okay, so then the follow-up question from Norm was, well, should we subtract that, or should we keep our cost at what it is and just add that much more pavement, essentially? Because that area could go back further. But I think based on what Mary was saying about our budget, being a little tight right now, I don't know if, I think we hopefully would, or I think we could probably save it there. But there's going to be another significant cost on Depot Street, so I want to get to that before we make any final decisions. But that's the idea. Does anybody have any questions on the Mechanic Street issue? Yeah.
So John, would you say 5,500 minus the apron that they would fix? Is that the cost share, the 5,500 with the water department? I mean, separate from the project, but because they use the facility, or?
We did not discuss any cost share with water department, so we could do that. I mean, we could do that after the fact because we are paving a joint entrance there, certainly.
When we or day before, whenever it was, that they were going to, that the water department would pay some of that paving project,
Okay.
because they use that facility.
I mean, I haven't broached that subject with Steve, but I
Okay.
certainly can, and I don't see why that can't. That's not essential to us contracting for the job, because we can just say, hey, we've paid this and you share the driveway, so we should talk about a cost share here.
Right.
But that wouldn't, if they said no, we're not going to share, then that wouldn't prevent us from doing the job, but it would just. I think really what we, the only argument that they would have is of what percentage, because our equipment is a lot heavier than theirs coming in and out of there. So. But.
Okay. Well, so move on to the Depot Street, and then we can.
So the Depot Street, Depot Street is basically Norm's baby, and it got all torn up and messed up because of this project. So it was, and the issue is, instead of it being sort of like a long patch like they've done on several roads on the side, it is a series of patches coming into just about halfway to the halfway point of the road. So when you're driving from the Lions Park toward the train depot, there's 3 places where it dips down in sequence essentially. And he has measured that with the VTrans engineer, and confirmed that at least in one place it's a 2-inch dip, so it's significant. And that was paved. It's my understanding that was paved last fall, and so it sunk over the winter, which you might expect that to do, but whatever the case may be, it needs to be repaired. Once you realize that there was sinkage there. So the proposal on that part is a more substantial cost share, because they're let's see, I gotta get the numbers right here. They looked at doing two different options. One would be to fill in those dips and then put a 3/4 inch coat down one side, so that it just evens the whole top coat out, so that you just notice it slightly once at the beginning, and then it's just one piece going the length of it. And that really wasn't, because of mobilization and the amounts that you're talking about with 3/4, and it's not that long of a section, that it really didn't add too much to the cost to do that. The second proposal was that they fill in those low spots, but then do a curb to curb for the entire length of Depot Street. And I think that was for a 1-inch. And the curb to curb for the full length ended up only being $10,000. So that's really not, for that amount of paving, I think that's a good price actually. But the other one, the paving halfway would be, I think it was $6,000.
So are those numbers on our share, or is that the total of the project and we owe a portion of that? Did you say there's a cost share?
Yes. So
if for the whole thing, 1-inch is 10,000, the entire project, which we would not be responsible for, or is that 10,000 just our share after they pay their end?
I'm not.
From what I understood you telling me, John, the other day, is that was the quote, the 10,000, and I could be wrong, but that the water department would be responsible, or the contractor, as part of this punch list, would be responsible for the parts of that include filling in the dips, and I would think some quotient of that one side that's not right. So I don't know how you figure that out, but I think our total cost would be some subset of that 10, but I may be wrong. I feel like they came in, cut up a perfectly good road in which Norm was involved in a test of using fabric under the road, which was provided at a very cheap rate by the company that did it, because they wanted to see how it works. And then they came in, remember, with 17 votes to do their water, to come in. They needed a road that's the only one that's up because of the project.
Matthew's frozen up here. See if we can.
You know, whether we have to come up with 6, 7, you know, I don't know. I don't know what it is, but you know, it's classic. I'm just kind of tired of it. Of course, we got our new water. Everybody's got water, but when does it stop? And yeah, I don't want no piecemeal, half of this with little fill in this and a half inch of that, because that'll last no time. I think on a quality road like that, if the issues and the dips are dealt with and leveled, then I think a 1-inch skim coat can probably be pretty effective for a while. The issue comes down to, you know, who's paying for it. We wouldn't be doing this at all on a perfectly good road if the water project didn't happen as approved by 17 voters in the community last year.
Yeah. Well, I certainly understand those concerns, and I'm sorry that I don't have that full information. I should have that. I apologize. I think it must be that I was just taking in a lot of information during that meeting, and you know, got the totals, but forgot to address the cost share side. So I'll get back to you with what the proposal for the cost share is, but it sounds like depending on the share that the village would be responsible for, that we would, so let's say that option 1 was paid for by Zaluzny in full. So that the half C thing. So you would fill in the low spots and pay part of the road at say $6,000, and then the full coat curb to curb would be $10,000. If our share was $4,000, is that something the board could support? Or
I could, because I think regardless, we would then we would be extending the maintenance on that road on our end on the far side. So for a $4,000 spend now, if we get an extra 5 years out of that road or 4 years out of that road, it's money well spent, even though we wouldn't normally do that right now. But I think if that's the best option and they're kicking in, and I know the numbers aren't firm, but if they're kicking in 6 and ours is 4 to get a completely paved road, I actually think it's kind of a wash, even though we weren't anticipating spending that. We'll see the long-term benefit of it. So I could support that.
Okay. So I think that what I would do is say that, you know, obviously road maintenance and improvement, even some unanticipated projects, are within the discretion of the highway budget and could be paid from the highway budget. But if it's something that's not in keeping with what we've talked about here tonight, that we'd want to have a special meeting to address that. So if it ends up, you know, being like a $10,000 spend instead of a $4,000 spend, then we need to meet again to see what our options are. Or just say that we're not going to do it, you know, but I would want to just check in with everybody first.
I echo Mark's comments. I think he's spot on with kind of where we should be with respect to our responsibility, their responsibility.
Okay.
Um,
All right, great. So that's the highway report that I have. There's a couple other issues like cleaning up the Welling Field area, and there's a couple of property owners that had problems with the mesh that was put in to hold the grass in place, but those are all being taken care of without any cost to the village or anything. So, but again, if you do hear of things, let me know as soon as you can. I don't know if issues from Development Review Board or Planning Commission, Fire Department, and we just discussed issues from Water Department. So the only other new business that I had was there was a proposal for a village website from Peter Pearson. I can share the screen here. I think I sent this around. He's out of Grafton. And he develops Squarespace websites. So we could purchase, and I actually did look at Squarespace to try to put some information on sort of a model website. And I just got to a point where I, was out of my depth and I couldn't really do any more. I could upload a picture and change a couple of the fonts, but it just wasn't getting anywhere close to what our website should look like. So I think it needs to be professionally done. I really do like the look of the Squarespace websites for what that's worth. I mean, I don't know if that matters or not to people, but this would be a proposal to build our website using a template from Squarespace. So we'd be doing business with both of them, actually. So he would be designing the website and establishing it for us, but then the ongoing relationship would be with Squarespace to pay them to host the website after that, plus paying for the yearly fee for the domain name, whatever name we end up choosing. So, and it does require quite a bit of work, but he lays it out here and then gives us a cost. So Mary did mention that I think that it would be good because it's not a large expenditure, but we could shop it around a little bit and see how we do and what other folks might offer us in terms of services. But I think we should make sure that the specifications are the same, because I wouldn't want somebody to, give us a quote for something less and then after the fact say, oh, well, this was a bunch of unanticipated stuff, like the extras that we get with the road projects sometimes.
Hey, John, can you scroll down again to just the numbers,
Yeah.
please? So just a quick question. So there are obviously some set fees and some yearly fees there, and then the $75 ongoing maintenance. Did he have a sense of what the number of hours he would typically spend in the course of a year for maintenance? I didn't see that.
Thought
It's a ballpark number of you can anticipate that at $75 an hour, I'll spend X number of hours a year, roughly, or is that impossible to do?
no, actually, I think it was. I thought it was in the proposal, but it looks like it isn't. It was in an email to me. Is that he said if we wanted to do that, we could, but we wouldn't. We wouldn't need to hire him for any of that. So the $75 an hour ongoing maintenance and updates would be only if we chose to continue to work with him to maintain the website after it's built. So if one of the trustees or whoever wants to take over that and feels confident in that, then we can do that ourselves and wouldn't have that cost. But if we prefer to have him do it, that's just his hourly rate. And so whatever we want to contract with him to work on it would be at that rate.
So a typical maintenance would be if we want to change the look or change some of the information we want to put in there. Would that be typically what maintenance is?
Yeah, he has designed at least one. I think he did actually the town of Grafton's website in New York, and so he understands that with a municipal site, we're going to have to be uploading and taking down, or probably not taking down too much, but putting up documents all the time.
Yep.
You know, on a bi-weekly basis, essentially, and we should be able to do that without any problem. That's not considered maintenance.
Okay.
It would just be changing the look, moving stuff around, or you know, if we found something wasn't working right, or we wanted to focus on something else, then that would probably be the maintenance that he's talking about.
Okay, so we're roughly looking at, whatever the yearly cost is. And
Yeah,
then if
so
we-
once it's designed, it's basically 226 a year plus, probably I would assume that we'd probably want at least to begin with some of that maintenance. But
Okay, thank you.
So we will. I had anticipated thinking that we might move forward with that, but I think I think it is prudent to sort of see what else is out there, just because that hadn't occurred to me either, is to do I mean, it's not, we wouldn't really do a bid process, but at least getting some additional quotes would be probably a good idea. So I think we'll do that. We'll probably.
I was just going to comment that there may well be local people or Bennington people or Bennington County companies. Clearly, you couldn't do a bid because this has now been publicly shared. And how would it be fair to this person? But I'm not sure how you go about it. But I know there's local companies that might be interested, and maybe even who takes care of Shasberry or Bennington or Arlington or some of these other websites.
Yeah, the CDC, do they have?
That's possible.
I mean,
I don't know.
It might be a great.
I did ask about that, and they were not able to. They have a graphic arts program, but not one that really is to the point of designing a website. Really, I don't. Right now.
Okay. I just always think of them because they have such great programs that.
Yeah.
And if we could support them in any way, they've been a great help to us over the years. So.
I certainly have a few people in mind locally
Yeah.
who do this kind of work. It's not about the money, because the money's cheap. It's just when you want help or when you need, because I'm not going to be, I'm completely untrained in the arts of web page management. So, even uploading just basic stuff, I'm sure I could learn, but we need to, once we have a page, it's got to be, everything has to be on there, minutes and everything.
Yeah. And it would be nice to have somebody who was aware of what the calendar was so that they could then be asking, at the appropriate number of days or whatever after the meeting, where is the content, and do it.
Right. I think ultimately we're going to want to pay somebody not just the 200 and some bucks a year. We're going to want to pay them. If we're going to have a legit page, I think we're looking at a couple thousand a year, just to keep it on the up and up. Make sure we're following all the sunshine laws and doing all that, and having somebody local. And I'm not saying this is not local enough. It could be, if they're willing to do that extra work. But
well, you could also consider splitting that too. I mean, you could have somebody design the site and then have somebody maintain the site.
Correct.
I want to make it clear though that I don't have a strong, like a familial relationship or anything here, but I do have a personal relationship with Peter. So I I knew him before I contacted him. I didn't know that this is what he did, but I just that was the connection, and I would want to. I just want to put that out there, just for, in to be full disclosure, I guess.
Yep.
That I'm not trying to sell this one because of a personal relationship. It's just that we've been looking for this for a long time, and I just happened to know or find out that he did this. So it was.
Yep.
It got
And the need is very, very real.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of stuff that should be on our site. Zoning, tax, ordinances, who knows?
And I think one thing too that we'll need to talk about once we take the step is the name. And I think that should probably be coordinated with the roundtable group and the Fund for North Bennington too, because right now northbennington.org is the fund's website. And we'll have to come up with something else, but we'd want to make sure that everybody feels good about what our online name is going to be, because that's going to be essentially forever at that point. So maybe we'd want to do a survey or something.
Well, don't we just automatically get, we can be the .gov or .state or
There is a .gov domain. I was trying to look at that after that popped up in my head, but again, I'm not. We'd want to have discussions, just because if you've got northbennington.org and northbennington.gov, do you want them both, or do you want them to be very close, or do you want them to be distinct? And if that's just a question that you want to.
I think having it close, and then being able to link from .org to .gov with an explanation of where you find official documents, official stuff is less confusing than something else. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess we need to talk more about this.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the work that you've done on this, and I'm not against the proposal that Peter has made, but I guess now we have to get down and dirty, and it's not about spending the money. It's not that much money. It's important that we have this, as Mary said, we need it. But now that northbennington.org is established, I think we're always gonna piggyback on them. When somebody goes in and says, I want to, access North Bennington, it's going to go there, and then they're going to say, this is where you go for the real deal.
But we could use Village North Bennington or North Bennington Village or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, and it looks like the town of Bennington is benningtonvt.org, and Grafton is .org too. So I'm not sure what the preference is for the .org address. For it may be that .gov is for not public. It's like a government run domain. So you would have to.
It might cost a lot more for the domain. Who knows?
Okay, well, we'll look into that in the next couple weeks and get back to you in October. I just wanted to make sure, for anybody who may view this, hopefully we're wrapping up here, so hopefully it's a little bit shorter to watch. But if anybody does watch it, to definitely, if you haven't responded to the census, please do that. That's really, really essential for community funding and for us to get the maximum amount we can for our grants that we get to help us improve the infrastructure here. So please do respond to that census. And the only other matter I had, unless there's others from the board, was that we needed to address one issue in executive session, and that has to do with a legal matter. So, yes, Lori.
I just had, you asked me to put on the agenda the Prospect Street safety concerns. You had received
Oh
some.
yeah, I'm sorry. Yep. Okay. So all right. Before we do that, then the executive session. Before we do that, there was there was a concern raised for the top of Prospect Street where the crosswalk goes across. The crosswalk had been all worn out, but that had been scheduled for repainting that week actually. And so it was funny. We got the email, and then the next day they were out painting the crosswalk, and the person that mentioned it to me just said, "Oh my God, I must have a big influence on the town of North Bennington. I get things done the next day." But Norm also looked at the signage there, and I think he replaced one of the signs that had either gone away or gotten faded or maybe wasn't as prominent for some reason. But he did replace a crossing sign. But the concern is that there is a lot of foot traffic there, and it's sort of a blind corner. I mean, it's not totally blind, but it's pretty blind coming downhill, and people are going kind of fast there. So the other issue that I wanted the board to discuss, not those things can just be done by highway and no problem with make sure that stuff is there, but he wanted to look at a street light there, and I think the speed limit as well. But maybe I can let Matthew talk about speed limit and how that may or may not do anything on Prospect Street.
Well, speed limits are also, as Lori has pointed out before, no change involves a lot of hoops. But what are we now? 35 here, probably.
Well, mechanic is 30, so I'm imagining you're 32.
Yeah. 30 also.
Yeah, right.
Probably not 32. You know what? They're going to fly down here no matter what, and the speed bump up doesn't work.
They've actually mentioned in the state materials, because they recommend that local boards don't just change speed limits, and there has been state legislation that's passed that said that you cannot in certain circumstances, because the numbers show that it's not really effective. That what you're doing is basically criminalizing you're criminalizing sort of the behavior that's not offensive, because when you reduce the speed limit, the sort of normal flow of traffic then all of a sudden is criminal, and everybody's breaking the law instead of the people that you're really concerned about, which are, there are people that are going way too fast on Prospect and Mechanic Street, no question about it. And what the state is saying is try to do something about that, as opposed to just lowering the speed limit. And it doesn't, because it's not really addressing the real issue. If you catch a bunch of people for going 27 and a 25, you really haven't solved your problem. You might, that's, some municipalities do that, but they do it just as a revenue generator, and that's not what we're looking for here.
Yeah.
I do think that we're going to try to address the speed limit issue on Prospect, Park, Mechanic, by trying again with Bennington, but also looking at our private contract options. We had mentioned that at, I think it was the July or August meeting, to see if we can get a little bit increased enforcement That needs to be well timed, though. It can't just be coming out here at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and waiting for an hour and one car goes by and then you go about your business. It probably has to be like in the 5 o'clock hour when there's traffic and people are out here. It's the problem is, and I'm right here on Mechanic, is that 9 or 10 o'clock at night, you get somebody just flying up the road, but it's one person and that's one car maybe every 45 minutes or something. I mean, it's not the reason they're doing it is because they know it's a low probability that somebody's sitting there for them. So it's really difficult to catch somebody. So,
What about the radar machine? I don't know what those are called, but the ones, Shaftesbury had one for a while. It may still.
yeah, I
find those effective, like personally.
I think EPD would definitely do that for us, or the sheriff's department. They would just park one of those out here. There's a couple places on Mechanic that could go.
Yeah, I think it certainly wouldn't hurt. I think it could be helpful.
I would not even be opposed with the more permanent installations that you're starting to see.
That could be useful on Prospect, actually, because it's more, there isn't as much room for like one of those big units, but just putting a sign up with the little speed limit, right? It just goes right under the speed limit sign. It says what you
face, the sad face, whatever. They work. I mean, they work for me. It just tells you, okay, follow the law. Most people want to follow the law.
In Manchester in December, they say naughty and nice.
Are there any thoughts on the street lamp going in there?
Where exactly are they talking? Right at the top?
I think it would be to try to illuminate that crosswalk, because I think there is a light in the parking area up there, but this would be for the crosswalk, so it would be on Prospect. But I think the proposal was not just a regular street lamp, but to make sure that it's a very specific type of illumination that's just down and very, very narrowly focused onto the street, so as not to produce any kind of light pollution off street.
So John, as they finish up the project up here with the old nursing home, there are poles there, and if such a light could go on one of those poles, it would be not expensive for us to do it. The Green Mountain would install it at our request, and it would just become part of the inventory of lights that we have and that we pay for. And I think there are some, at least on the new project side of the street, some poles right in that area that could really illuminate down on that crosswalk. And they'd be LED. They probably would be provided, the cost of the unit would probably be free, and then we would pay based on that light. Something to think about. And if there's a pole on the other side of the street, they might be able to do the same.
Okay. Is there somebody that might be willing to work on that to see if that is something that the people in that area want or support, and then if they do, that to give Green Mountain a call and maybe get a price or something?
I could do that. I used to know the contact guy back when we did that street inventory, light inventory. But I think I do have a number of the person involved with that now. I would say that the individual bringing up the concern would probably be happy with that, as they are adjacent to that crosswalk. And on the other side, I'm not sure that it being, two businesses per se, that
Yeah, it doesn't really make that big a deal.
they're going to have a parking lot and they're going to have lights in there. And yeah, let me look into that. I'd like to. I'd also like to then find out who would we talk to about one of those, actual radar deals that are incorporated.
Okay.
Well, we've had those before, and I know that Norm actually had the contact and was able to have it placed there. And I think it was a police department, as a matter of fact. So.
But Lori, I'm talking more about those permanent installations.
Okay.
Like Shaftesbury or Manchester or Dorset or. Yeah.
So I think I saw those as part of the pamphlet that I got from VTrans on changing the speed limit, and that was something that they suggested as an alternative. And I think that municipalities have those because there may be grant funding available to get those. So it's like a cost share or something. So I'll look at the paperwork that I got on that and maybe shoot out an email to see if I can't take it on, if somebody else wants to work on that one.
John, I lost the last 30 seconds of that conversation. I'm sorry, my daughter's on her own Zoom for her job, and but what were you referring to?
I will look at my materials that I think there might be a contact on my materials for that.
For a flashing sign or?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Let me know.
Yep. And okay, so I think that about wraps that up. Any other questions? We'll go ahead and is there a motion to move to executive session on a legal matter?
So moved.
Okay, and a second? Aaron seconds. And is there any objection to an executive session for that purpose? And we will just close the meeting after the executive session. There's no action anticipated in this executive session. So thank you to CAT TV for providing their services. Please support CAT TV.